Hi everyone, welcome to Birthing at Home, a podcast. I'm Elsie, your host. I've had 2 home births in April 2020 and in June 2023. I'm a mental health nurse and an ex-student midwife that has a strong passion for birth and supporting women. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on in Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. I would also like to acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have been birthing at home on country for tens of thousands of years prior to the British invasion and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. This is another episode in the Partners Supporting Birth at Home series, and today we hear from Lloyd in New South Wales, formerly in Victoria, who is a builder and business owner and also a passionate home birth advocate. It was really refreshing to hear from a partner so passionate about birthing at home. As I've said before, partners aren't usually checking out birth podcasts, so please share the podcast and this series. Enjoy! Welcome, Lloyd, to the Birthing at Home, a podcast.
Thank you, Elsie.
We were just quickly talking about where you are in New South Wales. So if you want to tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about where you live, I guess, and where you come from.
Oh, all right. So my name's Lloyd Urquhart. I grew up in Eastern Victoria in a fairly sort of middle, lower class working family home. Very loving family, very, very happy upbringing with it, all the normal challenges of family life in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Beck and I spent most of our relationship, Rebecca's my wife now, but most of our relationship we've spent together in the east of Melbourne, and we lived for 5 years in the Dandenong Ranges up in Olinda there. I'm a builder by trade originally and have spent most of my working life in business for myself through multiple different channels, most of that being building, but we have done a fair bit in the real estate world as well, Beck and I.
Yeah.
We've both always been a very open and sort of pioneering couple. I was the third child in my family, third of 4, and I was definitely the pioneering soul. So we I suppose in relation to home birthing, I was sort of like a typical man in the fact that it was just what the system had installed. It was sort of like, oh yeah, you have your children in a hospital, and that was how it all went together.
Yeah.
But our journey as a couple was when Beck was still working with our first boy. She was listening to a lot of podcasts, just like this one.
Yeah, amazing.
About all the broad spectrum of birth, which can be from one end, very procedural, all the way to very natural, and all the information in between. And that's where my introduction to this world began. Obviously, on my own family journey. It wasn't through my parents or anything. My parents it was in an era where it was sort of hybrid. It was coming into the hospitals, but there were still birthing centres and things like that. So, I had heard. Go, Elsie.
Are they in Victoria, Lloyd? Your parents?
Yep, my mum. Yep, mum and dad in Nunagoon North.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because unfortunately, there's no birth centres anymore in Victoria.
No.
I'm not sure what it's like in New South Wales and other states, but
I should mention, you said we were talking then, we're currently living in Eden in New South Wales, it's a very remote coastal town right down on the border of Victoria and New South Wales. Incredibly picturesque, but still a very remote country town. And we are currently pregnant with our third child and we're
Yep.
actually going to be traveling back to Melbourne to have it because
Yep.
we've built such a close relationship with Mama Toto midwives that
Yep.
are in the east there of Melbourne, and that was the best option for us to have another home birth.
Yep.
Whereas there was one option here on the south coast, and we were too far from
Yeah,
services
wow.
to be allowed to sort of do it. So we figured if we're going to have to travel around for it, we would use the trusted team again.
Yeah, yeah. So you had your first two, or Rebecca had the first two kids at home with Mama Toto as well?
We have a shared care birth with Mama Toto
Okay, yep.
for our first boy, and then we have a home
Yep.
birth, and
Yep.
this third one is planning a home birth.
Yeah, amazing. So what is the first baby's name or child's name?
Marek, Marek.
Marek.
It's a
Cool.
Polish version of Mark.
Okay, nice. And so with Marek, like during the pregnancy, like did you know about home birth before Marek, or you only ever had heard of hospital births?
I knew about home birth, but probably through my upbringing, it was kind of like this taboo or this. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but like a bit of a hippie thing, like
Yeah.
fringe, sort of a fringe culture, hippie sort of a thing that was also like portrayed to be quite risky, or what if things went wrong and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I hadn't put much thought other than that was sort of like, oh yeah, they've got midwives in the hospital, and we sort of are going to go down the path that way. And it was about 5 months in to Beck being pregnant with Marek that we, as I said, Beck was driving from Alinda to Brunswick each day.
Yeah.
And so because she was driving from Alinda to Brunswick each day, she was listening to a lot of podcasts about all the different birthing spectrums. And
Yeah.
it was probably about a month of listening to podcasts. So let's say 6 months in, she came to me and was like, I'm like, Lloyd, I'm freaking out about a handing over everything to the hospital and a full-scale hospital birth.
Yeah.
And so at that point, she asked if I would listen to some of these podcasts, and I jumped on and had a really good listen to a heap of them.
Yeah.
At the time, I was running a building and civil construction business, so I had plenty of time in the machines and driving from job to job where I'd just put the podcast on and start educating
Yeah.
myself with all of this
Amazing.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so for me, it just awakened some of that pioneering sort of energy,
Yeah.
and probably and sort of it allowed me to really go down a deep dive with Beck and sort of be supportive with Beck, hearing these stories and this information that was out there. And so
Yeah.
from that point on, we started researching, and we just through Google and a few recommendations, we found Juliana from Mama Toto Midwives. And so we had our first meeting with Juliana, and she was well prepared to act quickly and sort of get us in. We were very lucky that she'd had a position, because it's just incredible the way that they manage their schedule. It's like
Yeah.
managing a completely unplannable schedule to
Yeah.
perfection.
Yeah.
But yeah, she got us in, and at that stage, Beck and I were I was probably a little bit more reserved than my wife Beck, but I think she was allowing of my feelings of being a little bit nervous, that we opted for the shared care option.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of the cost of the home birth
Yeah.
also went into the
decision
the
making.
equation as
Yep.
well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's how it all happened with Marek. And then from there, we had a lot of support with those ladies and Juliana, and we went through all the way with them, and then we laboured at home. Beck's waters broke in the middle of the night. Yeah, so that would have been on the 10th of February.
Yeah.
At about midnight. And it was, in total, it was about an 8-hour labour. And
yeah.
we laboured at home until about 5:30 in the morning on the 11th of February. And then we had a really prepared game plan to get Beck in the car with a blanket, sunglasses on, keep her feeling really nested, really safe.
Yeah.
And we actually travelled together with Juliana from Alinda. We were on the Monbulk side of Alinda down to the William Angliss Hospital in Ferntree Gully there, Upper Ferntree Gully.
Yep.
And at that point, Juliana stayed with us and was supporting us all the way through until 10 to 8. And at 10 to 8, that's when Marek was born.
Yeah,
with a healthy physiological birth. And with the support of Juliana. Now, I don't know what the differences would have been. Beck was an absolute superhero. She was a superwoman. She just took the whole thing on with complete feminine power.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was just incredible. And we just felt so held by Juliana and so supported in what we wanted that it was like we didn't have to worry about any of the other stuff that we'd heard about what happens sometimes in a hospital. And I know for some situations and some experiences, you know, acute symptoms or acute situations, hospitals are amazing and incredible and absolutely serve a purpose. But for, you know, Beck, who's incredibly fit, under 30, no predisposed health conditions, and that, you know, even looking back now, we look back and go, we absolutely could have had a home birth too. But when you...
That's not how it works,
when you're cutting your teeth and you're going against things and stuff like that, you sort of, you're pioneering to the level that you feel that you can go to, you know?
Yeah. And in a society that, you know, actively stereotypes and stigmatizes home birth and, you know, for most people who have never heard of home birth or have only seen the news headlines about home birth, they, you know, think that home birth is very dangerous and risky. And so to even, you know, labor for that duration at home is, you know, really admirable, because for lots of people, you know,
Beck was 10 centimeters dilated.
Yeah, that's amazing.
At home.
Yeah.
So it was hilarious because Juliana came and said to me, we need to get in the car now.
Yeah. When you're going for baby number 2 and home birth, like, is that something that you know, were like, oh, well, Marek could have been born at home, so why don't we just have a home birth? Or how did that kind of go?
It definitely took our confidence well through the roof. Having
amazing.
You know, a very enjoyable, natural, physiological birth. Beck, I think she had a slight tear with Marek, and to be honest, even then, I think Beck maybe she probably had said, that it possibly was maybe a little bit of, she felt like she needed, they'd sort of even hurried her a little bit with having to push and that. And maybe it just was a little bit rushed in the end, but that'd be like a 1%er if you were looking to, you know. It wasn't something that Beck was caused, you know, was cause for any major frustration or concern. So that with that happening, we were, you know, especially me too, I was like, this is so amazing and so normal, and imagine if we could have this in our home. And be getting back in our own bed. And, in the end, we chose Marek to go and stay at my mum and dad's because he's very close with my mum and dad.
Yeah.
And he had done that a couple of times. It was well practiced. It was actually incredibly well orchestrated. Beck's mum came and picked Marek up, delivered him halfway to my mum and dad's, went to my mum and dad's, had a sleepover, came back the next morning, and he had a brother.
Yeah.
So,
amazing.
But for us, it was just incredible. It happened in the afternoon. Beck's waters broke in the afternoon. She went 18, I think she went 18 days over.
Yeah, wow.
In the end, and just was, it was complete trust and faith that it'll happen when it happens, and it is happening at home.
Yeah.
So
did you in particular have any like concerns or fears, or did you feel like you just had 100% trust in Beck and how she felt about her body and whatever?
Yeah, by the second time round, I was so well versed with a lot of this stuff. Like Beck and I had really listened to a lot of information by then through podcasts, through our network of people. We were always in contact even after Marek's birth journey. We often went to the social days that Juliana and the Mamatoto team would host.
Yeah.
So we were actively involved in that network of people.
Yeah.
We'd read books from people like Deepak Chopra, all around, about birthing. Beck had read a number of books. I didn't read as many birthing books, but I did in particular read the one from Deepak Chopra. I can't remember exactly the name of the book, but it was all his findings around birth and birth in tribal cultures and natural birthing, and it's an incredible book. That was an incredible book.
I've never actually heard of it. Yeah. If you could let me know the name, that would be amazing.
I'll have a look. So the confidence was there from my end as well. Yeah. There was a little bit, only minimal fears from then, but I think the what I would say to other dads is go on a deep dive with your wife or your partner. Like, the information's there now. Beforehand, I came from a very conventional family, and families are where you get your belief systems from, and it was all challenged healthily and for the best outcome. I know, as I said before, I understand in some situations, some acute situations, that the hospitalized approach is there and it works for those acute situations. But for the greater, this is my research and only what I'm saying just from me. I found that for the greater mass of information that was out there, for most happy, healthy women in a happy, healthy sort of relationship, if the space is held for a home birth, it is incredible. And the labour can be just a complete liberation for the relationship, for the family, for the woman. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it, from the stories that I've been listening to and, all the episodes on the podcast and everything that I've recorded so far, I think it really, hopefully you're already in a loving and healthy relationship, but I think watching your partner go on this journey of such incredible empowerment, I think it also, whether you want it to happen or not, I think it really encourages and promotes a deep respect for women and your partner and the whole process of, bringing a human life into the world. And I just don't know if I'm pretty sure there's not another experience that has the power to do that. And I think that's, incredible.
The one thing that it just felt so safe, so nurtured, so cared for, in your own space. You weren't like, oh, where do I go for a drink of water, or where do I go for, a towel or things like that. As a partner, you could just be so present and so in the moment with your wife and soon to be born baby.
Yeah.
And we had two midwives there. In the end, I'm just trying to remember. We had Shelley and one other, because Juliana was out on another birth, and that's a funny story, because the other birth was actually very good friends of ours. And very, very good friends of ours, actually, who had been referred to from us, and she was going for a VBAC. And
oh my gosh.
It was a successful VBAC, and Juliana was tied up on that birth, and the two children, these very good friends of ours, were born on the same day.
What?
That's was incredible. But so it was amazing, and felt so safe, and they're so well prepared. These home birthing midwives, they are so well prepared. They have everything there. I think it's a defibrillator. They have oxygen. They had everything. Everything that was, other major concerns, stuff. They had the medication for hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
All those things that I suppose are your major concerns with birthing were all taken care of. And I attended all of the antenatal appointments.
Yeah.
So that's another place for the men who are maybe feeling a bit of fear or unsure about that sort of stuff. Attend all those appointments with your home birth or your birthing team, and ask about everything. So they were always putting my mind at ease. No matter how big or small it was, they were always putting my mind at ease about things that I had concerns for, and they just held that space so well. So I found that was a really good way to eliminate a lot of fears. Yeah. We had a lady who was a sort of alternative health practitioner who was she was a homeopathic medical doctor. She was a registered psychotherapist. A plethora of certifications and registrations in all sorts of alternative and natural health space. And we also spoke with her a lot about it. And she had many clients who'd had successful home births, natural births, and that was another way for me where I was able to go and get information that really calmed down any fear that was a possibility. A whole lot of our antenatal appointments were at our house. They just came to our house. Yeah. Or Juliana had a studio at her place, and she had a couple of offices that you could go to if you wanted to. She rented spaces in some like shared work area, but it was so. That's what I wanted to touch on earlier. There was so much trust there with that continuity of care between our midwife, because we knew them and we knew Juliana's whole team because we'd met them at different appointments. She always incorporated the other ladies if she could, the other team members if she could. There was that much continuity of care. We knew if we were what we were walking into at the home birth, that we had complete trust. We weren't getting a random event. We weren't getting someone's random good day or bad day at the office, someone's, frustration of they're on their 12th hour of their, double shift or things like that go on in hospitals. It was like we were getting very emotionally stable, caring people who were doing what they love, providing beautiful births. And I'm sure there are some where they have complications. And this was one of my questions to them. What's happened? And they said, well, we just go emergency straight to the hospital. And it all continues from there. And she said, between now and the hospital, we have everything that needs to be taken care of to keep the woman and the baby safe. Yeah. So it was just so much more intimate and so much more caring, trusting, and special for our children's introduction into the world by having these like caring, trusting people that supported us the whole way through.
Yeah. And I wonder, working in construction and whatnot, I feel like there's probably a stereotype about, the type of people that work in construction when, you might have mentioned that Rebecca was having baby at home, like to friends or colleagues or, whoever. What was the kind of responses that you might have experienced? Anything like out of the ordinary, or were people quite respectful, or you might have kept it like hush hush?
Oh no, definitely not for me. But I know some men would do that. But
Yeah,
it's funny how men react to things. Men are, on one hand, inherently they'll either maybe be a bit bantery and a bit tongue in cheek about it if they think it's something that's maybe a bit weird or out of the norm or whatever, or on the other side of the spectrum, especially in construction, like they won't say anything, or they'll change a subject, or like, because they're just like, that's just too much for me to even comprehend. It's like sort of shut down in a way. But yeah, whenever people wanted to banter about it or were happy to open up, I just said, "Oh, look, this is for me. This is not for everyone."
Yeah.
And I think you have to stand in that strength. This is what I was talking about a man's strength when it's not malicious or toxic. It's like you stand in that strength and say, "Look, if you're interested, go and find out. Go and have a listen. Have a listen to some statistics. Have a listen to some professionals in this space. Don't listen to your, uncle's mother's grandma from once forever who had this horrible experience, and the whole family knew about it. And so that means every single woman ever have to be in a hospital. It's like go and listen to professionals in that space and get some clear information. So that's what I would always do. But what came up, I always just knew I had, it all came down to me being supportive for Beck.
Yeah.
No matter how much social pressure you're going to have in the world, and this is not just for birthing, this is just for a relationship in general. Everyone's relationship is different, and you're going to have social pressure from everyone. We all have that. Even with our, it's always the in-law jokes.
Yeah.
We get a partner and we joke about how the in-laws have an opinion on everything we do, or our own parents have an opinion on everything we do. If it's the right thing for you and your partner, you have to sort of block that noise out and go and get the information from the credible sort of places and people who are actually in the space. Because you could say, okay, well, I'll go get the information from the hospital. Well, the hospital is a business still. They're a business. At the end of the day,
100%.
They're a business. They are only going to tell you I call it information, but I'm going to say really it's marketing. They're only going to tell you the information that they want you to hear to keep you coming as a paying customer. Now, we don't pay 100%. Maybe with our wallets, but we pay with our participation with the Medicare system, which we do pay for. If you pay tax, we do pay for it.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, you have to go and speak to people, if whether you're copping some flack from the guys at work or work colleagues or your family or whatever. You don't have to go in an argument with them. It's not their journey.
Yeah.
And if they do want to know, just write them down some resources and say, you don't have to. I don't expect you to. But if this is making you feel really uncomfortable or unsafe or, nervous about this, here's some information. Go and listen to it. There's come and listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure that's right. That's right. There is wonderful people out there, doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the ultimate rebuttal is information.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's 100% out there. It's just, unfortunately, the hospitals. Yeah, I think what you have said is absolutely perfect. That, it's marketing. They're not going to tell you straight up like what all of their, statistics around like intervention and trauma and, how it impacts, your parenthood journey or future pregnancies, future births. They're not going to say that because that's terrible marketing. Like, who's going to want that? So I think that's you've hit the nail on the head there. That's absolutely perfect. Is there, to finish up, Lloyd, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think, other partners would benefit hearing? I feel like we've already discussed so many amazing things, but is there anything else that you'd like to add?
If you or your wife have even got the slightest inkling, don't project your generational fears or your generational traumas onto something without being prepared to challenge those fears. Like, we all have fears. That's right. That's where our greatest triumphs come from, when we conquer our fears or do the work on our void or feel, try and experience gratitude for things that have been really challenging or happened in our past that have been really, really challenging for us or traumatic for us. But allow those fears to be challenged, just especially the men out there, because I think women are inherently, naturally wanting to have their power back after hundreds of years of intervention, longer. From men, it's like, make sure those fears are well checked if you're going to bite down and use them as an excuse to participate in the big system of that we call a hospital system.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we could talk about this for ages, Lloyd. I am really great. I'm really, really grateful for you coming on the podcast. And if you're listening to this, please share it. Share that this podcast exists. Share that these stories exist. Because if you don't know, you don't know, and if you don't ask, you'll never find out. So thank you so much for sharing your stories, and good luck with baby number 3, and good luck with the move back to Victoria, Melbourne. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elsie.